This is episode 6 of the Asking You Shall Receive podcast. I am honored and very excited for today's episode. We're joined by Mr. Matthew Jimenez. He is the co-founder of One Percenters Digital Marketing. I'm telling you, man, if you got any questions or any needs marketing-wise, please reach out to him. So, Matt, thanks for coming on. I'm excited with our conversation, and just please let people know where they can find you and a little intro.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. I'm always grateful to do any type of podcast experiences because I get to actually speak for once. So as you mentioned, I own 1% Digital. So normally I'm the person producing these videos for others, and far and few between I get to actually speak. But I do get to speak here and there. So I really enjoy when I get the opportunity to, whether it's to a million people or a one-on-one, I don't care. I enjoy being able to tell my experience because it's quite extensive. So to your other question, where can they find me? I'm most active on Instagram on my personal account, which is NJAY_1D, the number 1D. And if anyone wants to connect, you could find me on there. That's my most active page.
Perfect. But, I really found you as a key person to have on the podcast, honestly, because I know you've had a really interesting journey overall. And especially, with kind of the work you do behind the scenes, it really goes unnoticed. And especially in today's world with how, marketing and content and branding is, having someone really strong, behind that camera is extremely important. So I really kind of want people to know, the person who's been doing all this and this journey, because I know it hasn't been easy. So just kind of want to start out from, the humble beginnings and just kind of where you came from.
Yeah. All right. So that's pretty jam-packed. So I'll take it in reverse. So then where I started from was an average person, as majority of societies, just hardworking, 2 jobs. I was doing breakfast deliveries in the morning, and then I was doing valet at night, and whatever else I could do on the side to make some cash. Then eventually I started a podcast just like this. And on that podcast, I was speaking on financial literacy and how to trade, how to invest your money. I was really big into macroeconomics. I was learning a plethora of different economies, and I was just obsessed with investing and protecting wealth and growing it. And on that podcast, I would have guests on there that were either big traders, economists, big YouTube presence. I would just DM as many people as I possibly could and hope and pray that somebody would just say yeah to me. I didn't care that I had really, at the time, almost no following. I was just still shooting my shot with everyone. And I would get yeses. And surprisingly, you get more yeses than you'd expect. And you'd get more yeses from people that you would never imagine would want to. So I really encourage anyone to just shoot your shot, even if it doesn't make it. It doesn't matter. At least you could say you tried, right? So I actually ended up trying, and it worked out. I got this one guy. Now I'm going to get into how it kind of evolved from that. So when I was doing the podcast, I was also working in between and trying to sell courses, right? So I was teaching how to trade, but more importantly, how to understand economies. So the basis of my course, which I still have, is on learning economics, all the terminologies, how currencies work. So through that podcast, I had someone come on, and his name is Mark Moss. And after that podcast, he had messaged me. He was like, I really like what you're doing. Would you mind helping me out with my media? I immediately said yes. I think that same day, I probably opened up an S Corp to start a media company. And at the time, my business partner now, who's helped me with the courses, he's been a part of like basically everything. He was working on creating kind of like baseline level edits, some graphics and flyers. He was getting familiar with cameras, nothing to the point where we are now, but being familiar with it more than anything. So I knew we had the ability to let this thing snowball into something massive to the point where it is today. So I told Mark yes. and we just started from there, and it's been continuously progressive to success.
I think there's a lot of key things that are overlooked, especially coming from that working background and that worker's mindset, like you were saying. A lot of people think when an opportunity like that comes about, especially, they need to have everything in place, or, they need to feel right, or things like that, where you're saying, you didn't know the top of the line marketing techniques and things like that, but you still went ahead with the opportunity and kind of made the most out of it.
Yeah, to that point, you actually said something really good. Yeah, I was in the working force, and I was my whole life. Since I was 15 or 16, I worked in a fish market where I was just packaging exotic sea creatures like lionfish, crazy things, jellyfish. But to your point, you said that you think it's cool that I came from that area and that how I just shot my shot and tried to go where I wanted to go. Yesterday on my Instagram, I had said, if we knew how hard things were going to be before we started that thing, we'd probably never start. So, with that being said, if I knew how difficult this journey could be, I probably would have procrastinated and never started. I'd probably be on this. I wouldn't even be on this podcast. I'd probably be talking to someone else about something I want to do, possibly in the future. Right? I'd probably be like, yeah, I want to start a media agency or whatnot. So yeah, if we knew how hard things would be before we start that thing, we'd never do them. So to that point, I just wanted to emphasize on that.
Yeah, and to kind of build off of that, you have to have a certain will, even though, like you said, it might be a long journey and things like that, but just was it a will to just kind of change your circumstances, how you were living? Were you just kind of not happy with your lifestyle of just like working and getting by, or how was that kind of came about? Yeah.
So I would say my driving factor, and naively speaking, is I kind of just always felt that I needed to do more, but and this is going to be a cliche answer, right? Because everybody's going to say, well, they had to do it for their parents or their brother, and quite frankly, that is the answer in short. But I was very naive to the point of how much effort it would actually take, right? So I was continuously naive that you could fail, right? I was just completely, just always failing fast, but learning as I failed, right? So it was like a snowball effect of experience to applied knowledge to actual growth in real life. And then I started to get a taste of like, oh wow, I could actually go to steak dinner. Oh wow, I could actually consider a different car. Oh wow, I could actually cover my bills this month and maybe have some leftover cash. And then that thought just like got birthed with a bunch of self-help. I know we all heard the book Think and Grow Rich. So when I was in that stage of like making it but not making it, but understanding that I could make it because I was naive that how hard it would be to make it, I was constantly just feeding my brain that. I even completely shut off all external messages that would be outside of that. And I think that it just impregnated my mind to success, and there was no other outcome. I really actually didn't see any other out.
Hmm. And, to really touch on that, were there, whether it be from like childhood or just, kind of growing up in society, there like a pile of just like limiting beliefs that you kind of had upon yourself that you needed to kind of just break through? And not only that, like also individuals that you probably had to start, kicking to the curb to say, if I'm actually going to reach these things and achieve these things, these people really can't be around me anymore.
You know, so a lot of people would say, yeah, you have the realization you got to lose your friends, you got to change your circle. But I actually never really had that thought because I was so involved in having to work for my goal that those people just fell off by default. I was not like actively like, all right, I got to cut you out because you're going to take from this, and I got to cut you that out because you're a negative influence over here. I was literally so focused that I accidentally cut these people out by not even keeping in communication with them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
and I think along with that, I'm sure you had a natural process as well of kind of replacing beliefs and definitions that you had, whether it be for your future and also kind of what you could achieve in your life as well.
yeah, yeah, and like the background that I come from, I was probably upper poor, lower middle, like right in that area. My mom is a kindergarten teacher, and my father is a hairdresser. So doesn't we don't I've never really experienced money up until the last 5 years of my life, and like it's a whole paradigm shift of how you can actually live, and it got birthed with that whole process of dropping people off, impregnating the mind with these alternative realities. And I never once thought like, oh well, I don't think that it's for me. I don't think that could happen. Like I never had self-doubt. The only thing was like try. And even if it failed, it was never like, oh, I don't know if it's gonna, I don't think this is gonna work for me. Maybe I'm not cut out for it. I never thought that way. I just was like, all right, well then I just gotta try this. All right, well then I gotta try this. I think that kind of mindset of being okay with messing up or failing or not meeting the mark is the most advantageous mindset for success.
I really don't think that's kind of something a lot of people grasp nowadays because they get motivated like at the beginning of the year, they have their resolutions and they have their goals, and then they come upon, whatever it might be throughout the year, and then they just stop. Or they say, that's it. So what would you say is like the difference maker for all those people, because self-doubt is something that plays in people's heads like repetitively. And, it's really something that I feel is like the main hindrance on humans' potential, especially today.
So I'm trying not to be cliche here because there's so many motivational gurus and self-help people that will just say something that is just regurgitated from someone else. But I'm just going to speak from my own experience. I think that the only variable between a person in a job making $1,000 and another person in their own business making $50,000 is the durability to endure lack of accomplishments. So what I mean by that is if you can endure not being able to fulfill yourself, let's say I'm working this $1,000 job and I want to make 20,000, but I keep failing. The longer I can endure that failure without having the self-doubt, it's inevitable I'll become successful. So the only variable there for someone to become successful is time. So the longer you, because I'm not going to say you're not going to have self-doubt. I'm pretty sure everybody will experience that, but it's how you react to that self-doubt. Are you going to actually let it control you, or are you going to actually use it to fuel you and beat your own mind? So I'm not going to say, well, you got to stay motivated. You got to rid those thoughts. No, let them come. That's fine. But just continue acting. Like, even if it's not going good, just continue acting, because in the act is the pursue, and in the pursue is the accomplishment. So the longer you can act, the more likely you are to achieve that end goal that you're looking for. So just, you got to beat the test of time, and you got to be okay with feeling self-doubt, but don't listen to it. You can hear it, you can feel it, whatever, but keep working.
I really think a little bit of that is kind of almost enjoying the process more than the end goal, because especially today, we hear a lot of people, they reach this amount of wealth or they finally get the mansion and things like that, but they're still really not fulfilled on the inside. And many kind of realize, it's really that journey and fulfilling that purpose that you feel that kind of takes, precedent over all these material things that a lot of people kind of seek to and strive to.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of people live very hedonistic lives, and we could all 100% agree that hedonism is an endless hole that you could just continuously feed, and you'll never reach the ground of that floor. So yeah, I would recommend anybody to feel fulfilled before you become uber successful, but that's not to say success doesn't bring fulfillment, because it absolutely does. There's nothing more fulfilling than reaching a milestone. There's nothing more fulfilling than living where you want to live, or taking the vacation on a random Tuesday to a 5-star hotel. It's $5,000 a night. There's nothing more fulfilling than that. And I'm enjoying the whole process of becoming that.
Yeah, I do want to ask you as well, because I know you've done some traveling, and especially for individuals here in America, I think they
Yeah.
kind of really don't realize what their hardships actually are. And I know you've done a lot of traveling, so I think it really helps with the perspective in which, how privileged we are here in this country, and kind of also how we really like grade our problems here today, where, you know, if someone kind of had that problem in another country, it's honestly a blessing that they would consider.
Yeah. Okay. So I got stories on. I've traveled the world, thankfully, due to my media agency and working with amazing people, and being able to fly around with them, film them, and be in the most outlandish places on the planet that nobody can even fathom. I have this one place that I went to, and it really stuck out. This is not the story that I want to tell. I just want to show the severity of where I've been. I went to this place called the Untouchables. You could look it up. And basically, this place is a tribe in the Himalayas. And we had to get there via helicopter. But not only helicopter, it had to be a government escort helicopter. There's no direct line of transportation for their tribe to any civilization in any way you go. So they're literally desolated in like a village that's in a valley surrounded by mountains, and it's impossible for them to go anywhere. So, to put that into perspective, there's no hospitals, there's no grocery stores, there's, forget electricity, there's zero comforts that we have. Women give birth on the hard floor, not even blankets, like things that they had to knit with. I don't even know what kind of materials. The way that they eat is they have like a bowl with a charcoal lit fire, and they just keep that running. And it's weird. I have a video. I don't even know how it operates, but people are so smart in finding ways to survive. It blows my mind. They have this like turner that they keep turning, that like moves the coals and like keeps the fire alive. So everybody constantly turns that to keep that fire going. They have one fire, and to see that, and to compare it to when I'm done with this, I'm gonna walk out to my kitchen and have 6 pasture raised eggs, some raw cheese, and exotic fruits with a cup of coconut water. Like, having that comparison is so crazy, because in one side of it, you have people literally trying to figure out a way to survive an extra day. And then you have, on the other side of the world, people like myself and you and others watching this, because if you're watching this, you're already privileged enough to be able to just go grab a meal like that. And it's crazy. So, to the story that I really wanted to say, I just wanted to show the severity of how rich we are, even if we only make paycheck to paycheck. As long as we're here and you're listening to this, you have a phone, you have internet, you have electricity, you have for sure flowing water because you're alive, you have essentials. These people kill each other to get to the river if someone took more water than them, because the river only flows X amount of days out of the month. They will literally kill each other and risk both losing their buckets of water in the sake of bringing water back to their little village. That's the level that I've seen. Now, to bring it a little bit more relative, because that's super primal. Now, to bring it something that's comparable, I was in Kathmandu and I met this kid. Hopefully he'll hear this one day, but I don't know if he would ever hear it, because he would need Wi-Fi and all these things, right? His name is Vishal, and I bumped into him in the city of Kathmandu. And if you've ever been out there, it's extremely poor, right? And there's tons of people that come up to you on a daily basis. If you go out there, bring some extra cash and use that cash to just give out. It's one, it's a good deed for yourself. It's good karma. But two, you get to actually make an impact. That $5 that you would give someone, or $2, whatever it is, $20, will literally change the trajectory of their week. So anybody listens to this, if you go to Nepal, make sure to bring an extra couple $100 just for charity. So I bumped into this kid. I kind of blew him off because I was in a rush that day, and like I said, you're getting bombarded left and right nonstop. Blew him off, going about my day throughout the city, and I bump into him again. Now, mind you, that is extremely hard to do. Kathmandu is so populated. I shared a picture or a boomerang on my story, and you can see how congested the streets are with people. So to bump into somebody twice is absurd. So when I bumped into him the second time, I gave him some cash. And he's like, no, that's not even really what I want. He's like, I want to practice my English. I want to talk to somebody that's not from here. And I was like, okay, just how about you follow me, because I have things to do. Follow me throughout the day, and we'll talk. Well, anything you want to talk about, just hang out with me today. He's like, oh, really, really? He was so excited. So I took him around with me. I went and ate, bought him food. He couldn't believe that he ate in a restaurant. And then he was showing me like cool cultured parts of the city, of neighborhoods, of people. It was really cool to see. He gave me a lot more than I gave him, I think. And so I had to go back to my hotel. And when I showed him the hotel I was staying at, he got extremely timid. I was like, what's wrong? He's like, you're staying in there? I was like, yeah. I was like, you want to come in real quick? And he's like, no, I'm not allowed. I was like, what do you mean you're not allowed? He goes, yeah, it's just I don't have enough money. I can't go in there. I was like, it's free. He didn't understand that you could walk into a hotel. That's how far his mind was from the thought of wealth. He thought he wasn't even worthy enough to step on the premises of this hotel because there's guards there, and it's the nicest hotel. It's not even that nice. It's in a loft, and it's maybe like $150 a night. Like, but you can't find anything really exquisite out there. So, but in comparison to everything else, it's super exquisite. He did not even have the confidence to walk over there. I said, come with me. What if you were my guest? Would they not allow my guest in? He's like, oh, I don't know. I was like, all right, come with me. I'm going to show you around. So I bring him to this hotel. He pulled out his phone and was in tears to see a facility with clean floors, with AC, with electricity. But more importantly, he saw an elevator. He's never seen an elevator in his life, let alone enter one. So when I had to go to my room and I brought him in the elevator, he didn't even know how it worked. He didn't know how to walk. Like, there's people coming in and out. He's like navigating awkwardly because imagine like dropping a full-grown adult that's a baby to these experiences off in that type of environment. You wouldn't know how to act. So he just was completely beside himself. And we get up to my floor, and I was pretty high up, and he saw, as soon as you step out of the elevator to the right, there's a window, and he saw his whole city. And when he saw his whole city, he is like, his jaw dropped. They have government phones, so he was trying to call back to his like his family, which is his sister, his mom, his sister's baby, and a couple others. And he couldn't get in touch with them, but he could not believe that he saw his city. The city that he walks in every single day, the city that he lives in, he's never seen it from a high view, and it just blew his mind. Then when I went to the room, I forgot what I was getting. I was getting some things. I told him to come check out the room. He started hysterically laughing and like freaking out that the bathroom and the bedroom were in the same vicinity. He didn't know that existed. So maybe that helps the listeners. If you could get up and go use a restroom without having to find a designated area for that, you're privileged. So that's the magnitude of perspective that travel gives you to these other countries.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you could have really said it any better. And to really put reality into perspective for many of us here, you really touched on a key point, which I think is really critical, and that's being an impact to one's lives. Not only just yourself or for personal gain, but being able to change the outcome of others' lives around you. Whether it be changing that person's life for that week or for that day. Touching people's lives like that is really what this is all about, and what being here on this earth for the short time we have is all about. And it really does put things in perspective for us to really kind of focus on what really matters most.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely did that. The other day, I had to go to Miami for one of my clients, and I was stuck in traffic, and I caught myself complaining, and I was like, "Wait, I can't complain." And I posted a picture of the congested streets in Southeast Asia, a majority of people walking. If you're lucky, you have a scooter, and I'm sitting in a car with AC, listening to my favorite podcast, Bluetooth connection, comfortable seats. I'm like, never mind. I apologize for complaining. Forgive me, God.
Yeah. But that's really it. And I kind of want to use my last few questions here to really touch on the impact you're making in your area of content creation, because it's really become a pivotal point for businesses, individuals, and companies to really make a life-changing impact on other individuals' lives. And I know you're a key part of that. So I want you to touch on that.
We're living in such a crazy time that every human being is a brand, right? If you have a social media account, by default, you're a brand. Your social media account is a business card. It's a place where people can know your personality. It's a brand. Anything that's recognized by others, and especially in groups, is technically a brand. So, how do you want to curate your brand to affect other people's perspective of you? Media is so important, especially in the terms of content creation, because you can curate your own message. You become your own avatar. It's great. You get to build exactly the person you'd like to be. So work diligently and make sure that everything that you're doing is in congruence with who you are now and who you want to be. If you're doing things that are out of line, is that who you want to be in a few years or a year from now? Is that how you want to be perceived, a person that's out of line or whatever it may be? I think it's a great hub for someone to speak their truths. Obviously, with the censorship, it's quite difficult, but you can use other platforms like Rumble, and you could build your own communities, speak freely in there. The most important thing about content creation, I'd say, is make sure you own your audience. What I mean by that is make sure you're capturing as much emails as you possibly can, and information, so that way people who genuinely like your message and care for you can go follow you without the restrictions of maybe a ban or imposters trying to scam others. So running content to capture your audience is super important, and being able to be in touch with your audience a little bit more intimately than a scroll is super important. And content is the number one way to do that. I say attention is currency and content is the product. So make sure that the product is something that you want to be serving.
Mm. And I really like how you touch on starting and basing everything off of authenticity. Not going on there to put on a facade or to look a certain way, really just pushing your personal message, who you are and who you want to be. I do kind of want to talk about as well, putting all of this together where, we now have the mental framework. We're realizing how blessed of a position we're in. So now it's really kind of time to take the necessary and according action. I'm sure you have a set of either disciplines or things you do each day that are kind of like non-negotiables. Do you have anything that kind of touch on that?
Yeah, I believe we all have non-negotiables. Even if you don't have a non-negotiable, you do, right? So like imagine someone saying that I don't have a non-negotiable. That's their non-negotiable, doing nothing, right? But there's no chance of them doing something. So their non-negotiable is being lazy. My non-negotiable is the complete opposite of that. opposite of that. I need to move my body every single day, whether it's a 5 mile walk or to be the opposite of lazy. I need to work on myself every single day, whether it's 30 minutes or 2 hours. That's a non negotiable. The other non negotiable is to be tentative to business. So, whether that's client relations that day or certain workflows or connecting with the team, whatever it may be, that's a non negotiable. So, work on myself, work on the business, and my other non negotiable is eating healthy. Those three things nobody can sway me out of. Only I can sway myself out of, which I never do. I work out 7 days a week. I eat good 7 days a week, and I work 7 days a week.
Kind of final questions here. Overall, for especially young adults today that really might not have their mindset on right or their priorities on right, what kind of tips do you really have for them to kind of build the right foundation and start making an impact like you are yourself?
So, so unfortunately, we live in a world today where social media is your biggest ally, but also your biggest enemy. In order to know what to put out there to be authentic, we have to understand that there's people out there that are disingenuous. And it's very easy for people to open up a new Instagram account, buy hundreds of thousands of followers, get the blue check, and put out content that is catered to a certain perception. And that will definitely influence people to believe something that you're not. The problem with this is you're making money immorally by tricking others into doing whatever you want them to do. But also, you're always going to be in a rat race looking for the next product, the next thing to sell, because you haven't built your foundation on solid ground. Now, with that being said, how do you want to do business? Do you always want to be stressed, looking for a way to scam people, be dishonest, and try to find whatever product you could possibly find, whether it's fake e-commerce stores, whether it's someone else's course that you scammed, or whatever it could possibly be? I don't know the scams out there these days, but I know that people have used my persona and opened up multiple accounts, and I've gotten direct messages saying, "Look, I just sent this person money," and then, like, it gets me extremely upset because there's people that are really doing this and honestly making ends meet, I assume, by scamming others. But if you're that person, do you think that will survive? Do you think you would thrive in that? And if I think about that, absolutely not. So I believe in sticking with honesty, and I believe if you work hard on one particular thing long enough, you will actually be good at that one particular thing, and you will actually be able to use that one particular thing to generate you money. So in my case, we are good at making content. So we stick with content and telling the story of other brands and amplifying messages. And we've done it long enough to where we've actually learned how to generate money in the most honest, value-driven way. And that is how you build rapport, but that's how you build your future self to have money and ease any stress of trying to figure out what you're going to do. So anybody listening to this, I would say get obsessed with one thing. And it doesn't have to be something you particularly love, because doing that can be quite difficult. Because if you love shoes, well, then it's a very hedonistic route. But then you could find, I find myself, you could actually make a business almost out of anything. So you can do whatever you love. But I say find something that is in high demand. So shoes, to me, I don't think it's in super high demand. But what I think is in high demand is marketing. What I think is in high demand is content, is websites, is things revolving to social media, things revolving to companies. You want to add value. Having sneakers and selling sneakers, you're adding value to people that are obsessed with sneakers. But adding value to amplify someone's income is a much higher value. That's my point. My point is find something that you think is of value that somebody else would like to pay for. Put it this way, if I was a massive company, would I be interested in sneaker designs? No, I'd be interested in how would I even market these sneaker designs? The marketer for the sneaker designs make a lot more money than the person that made the shoe. So find something that's a lot more value driven rather than hedonistic, and I believe that you will build a much longer career that way.
That's a really good way to put it, because most kind of, like you said, look from it from the opposite point of view, where what can they get out of it? And kind of, as long as they get what they need, that's okay.
Yeah.
I do kind of want to compound off of that, is, now once you have those kind of right priorities and the right intentions, it's very important who you surround yourself with. And like yourself, you've surrounded yourself with lots of, impressive individuals who I'm sure have given you lots of value, whether it be Mark Moss, Mr. Kiyosaki. So I do want to kind of have you touch on, using this whole platform of bringing value in whatever it is you do, kind of allowing you to grow yourself and also, surround yourself with the right individuals of where you want to be in the future.
Yeah, that's a good one. So the first thing I would say is rich people pay more. So do you want to be doing business with people that are, per se, check to check and don't have any extra money to spend? No, you want to do business with people that can afford spending, and then get yourself around those people, whether it's going to networking events, because people who go to networking events clearly have extra money and they're able to think of the thought of doing business when they go. And those people who could think of the thought of business clearly have the intentions to get involved in business. So get yourself around networking events. I would suggest, even if you have to spend your last dollar to get the VIP pass, it's far more rewarding in terms of ROI, because now you're around people that do have the money that you want to be doing business with. And that would only insinuate you bumping elbows and shaking hands and getting the opportunity to possibly do business with. Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Robert Kiyosaki, Ken McElroy, Mark Moss, NFL players, massive individuals with massive influence. And that's only due to the fact of putting myself out there and getting myself in rooms that they are and finding out what their problems is. So the best way to make money or start a business is figure out how to get money, right? So when I go to these events, I want them to talk. I don't want to talk. I want to listen. I want them to talk and tell me everything that's going on. And then if I think I could come up with a solution to either amplify, even if it's by 1% what they're doing, then I could put a price on that. And then now I have a product. So for instance, if you go to a networking event and someone says, yeah, everything's going great, I'm growing my socials, I'm working on my brand, I have this product, I'm running ads. Cool. Start asking questions. So how are the ads panning out? Are you reaching your ROI? Are the channels growing? By what percent? Find where there's a bottleneck and then offer the solution. It's really that easy. Even if you don't have the solution, when you go home that day, figure out the solution. Like, just say yes. Yes, say yes to business. You never say no. The problem is a lot of people don't even think that they could do something when really we have ChatGPT, we have Google, we have things that will literally tell you how to do the very thing that you don't know how to do. So figure out other people's problems, go home if you don't know, and learn as much about that problem that they're having and offer them a solution. Get their information, go home that day, figure out something, send them a nice, clear, concise proposal of like, look, here's your solution. I remember we spoke, and this is what I found would be extremely advantageous. Would you pay $1,000? Would you pay $5,000? Would you pay $100? Even if it's $1 they give you, that's business. A lot of people think they need to spend money to do business. Oh, I need a website, I need this, I need that. No. Money in is a business. Money out is not a business. Money out is an expense. Figure out how to get money in first, and then you could amplify from there.
Definitely. I really believe many of these mindset kind of topics that we touched on earlier really correlate to this, because most individuals are really not going to put themselves out there to connect and interact and have that kind of mindset to, solve a problem that's presented before them. And that goes into having an abundance mindset, not having that self-doubt within yourself as well. So I do want to ask, as you're kind of doing these things, I feel it's important to kind of track your journey as well as part of your content creation, where you can kind of build that following and that authenticity to where you almost have the same followers from when you started day one to 5 years later. Some people kind of don't really want to track the ups and downs in the process, but I think it's almost key to where you have an audience that's really almost been with you from day one. A lot of people don't really want to do that. They feel vulnerable or insecure about what they're posting, or because it's not as good as the other person that might be putting content out there. And it really stems from what I would say is a issue in comparison. And I think that kind of leads towards being focused on yourself. But I know comparison is an issue here in America as well.
Yeah, I think comparison is inevitable. Like I said, self-doubt would be inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
It's how you respond to it, right? Like, it's literally the matter of, if somebody pulled out a knife on you, how are you responding to that? Are you just playing dead? Are you fighting back? Or are you running away? Some things are inevitable. So self-doubt is inevitable. Comparison is inevitable. But how do you respond to those feelings? I think comparison is great. Why? Because it puts me in a competitive mind frame. When I see somebody either in my same industry or my age or even younger, and they're completely crushing it, I get so infuriated that I need to go way harder. Even if I'm going hard, I realize, all right, I could do more. There's somebody always going to be doing better. There's always a bigger yacht. There's always a bigger bank account. There's someone always fitter. That just means you got to work harder. If you're somebody that bends over and goes into fetal position because you compared yourself to someone and they're doing so much better, well, then honestly, you might not be cut out for entrepreneurship, and you might as well just stick to your comfort job. If you can't handle the comparison and feeling much smaller and not letting that motivate you, but letting that scare you from the tasks that need to be done, then you don't deserve to be rich. Not everybody can be rich. Not everybody can be successful, right? So figure out what person you are. Are you the person that's going to go into the corner and fetal position because somebody's doing better than you? Or are you the person that's going to do 5 more things on that day because you saw someone doing better?
I have one last question. When it's all said and done, what impact do you really want to leave here on the planet? What mark do you want to leave here on Earth when everything is said and done?
That's a very good question. It's one that requires far out thought, right? Think way ahead in the assumption that, you have a long, fruitful life. What I would like to leave behind is something of abundance for my family, right? Because, like I said, I came from a family that doesn't really have much to be left behind besides their love and experiences, which is really a blessing in itself and more than one can ask for. Anything else is just house money. But I want to be able to leave behind that plus inheritance. But I want them to work towards their inheritance. I want to leave a legacy behind. I want many kids. But more importantly, I would love for the fingerprint of my media agency to live longer than me. And I would love for it to fall into the hands of someone else that cares as much as I do and would love to spread the message of people that have the same core values and morals. I don't want to be doing business with somebody that's pushing certain propagandas or agendas. I want to be pushing the narrative and the agenda of truth and freedom and liberty and things of that matter. So everybody I work with today is somebody of those exact morals, is somebody that understands economics, is somebody that wants to preach financial freedom, wants to help others. That's what I would love to leave behind. And I would love for that to flourish and grow without even me having to be here in the hands of someone else that cares just as much as I do. And I would love to leave behind a legacy for my kids. That would be the answer to that question.
Perfect. Matt, I really appreciate you for coming on. I know there was a lot of value that was brought here on this episode. I really hope this was an episode to, give some individuals a wake-up call, others to kind of really align and realign their priorities and just really make that impact that matters here in the short time we do have on Earth. So I want to thank you for coming on, and I appreciate it as always.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And if anybody else had value out of this, reach out to me on Instagram, let me know. And if you have a podcast, anyone listening to this and you want a guest, like I said, I'm always excited to speak and give as much knowledge as possible. Knowledge is power. So I'd love to give.
Thanks so much. That was episode 6 of the Asking You Shall Receive podcast. Thank you again for listening, and please keep again and tune next week.